Hello, Mr. Stafford again. This time we're going to talk about weathering and erosion. Not too much to it. Shows up in hodgepodge stuff on the SOLs. There's no real pattern as to what you might see or what you might not see. Weathering erosion deals with sedimentary rocks mostly. Weathering meaning breaking down of rocks by various means, and that's all in the notes. Erosion means transporting it or moving it from point A to point B. Think about like our mountains and the beaches. Pretty much the sand at the beach came from the mountains. It was weathered, broken down rocks from the mountains, and then eroded, which means it was moved by way of rivers and streams to the beaches. And it kept on breaking down the rocks until finally it broke down into sand-sized particles at the beach. If anyone's ever been to California, well, the sand there, they have lots of rocks and stuff in their sand. And the reason being is because their mountains are a lot closer, so their sediment doesn't break down as much. And I'm sure there's someone out there saying, "No, I saw a movie. I went to California, and their sand was real small, and it looked just like the sand here in Virginia Beach." Well, there's a reason, because they put it there. Naturally, it shouldn't be like that. But in order to make California beaches as beautiful as they are, they put sand there. It's called beach nourishment. It costs thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and pretty much almost all major beaches, they do it. Virginia Beach does it too. So does Nag's Head. They spend lots of money putting sand back on the beach because it erodes away, which means it moves away, and then someone comes along and says, "Wait a second, our beaches are going away. We need to put sand back." So they dredge it. They get it from somewhere. They take big pipes, and they kind of push it with water all back along the beach. Some of you might have actually seen them doing that at the beach. It happens every 3 or 4 or 5 years. And Nag said, I think last time they did it was 2012, I want to say. But anyways, that's a little bit extra. Other stuff about weathering and erosion: chemical weathering, which means a rock or something breaks and actually turns down or turns into something totally different. It's totally turns into something else. Its chemical formula has changed. Whereas mechanical or physical weathering is just breaking into smaller pieces, just like breaking glass. It's still glass, it's just in more than one piece now. That's mechanical or physical weathering. Other things that might show up are floodplain. Richmond has a big floodplain. It's called the flood zone, or Shockoe Bottom, or Shockoe Slip. That's in a river meander, which is a bend in a river, and that's an area that usually floods. Floodplain. Not a really good place to put a city, is right in the middle of a floodplain, because it's going to flood, like Richmond does every time there's a hurricane. Something else about flooding, you definitely need to know the zones of aeration, saturation, and water table. You need to know that. That does show up a lot on the SOLs, and you better believe it's going to show up on the test. And you might actually have to label a diagram. Hint, hint, hint. So make sure you know that the zone of aeration is at top. That's where there's air and dirt, or air and sand, air and rock. Then there's a water table, which is that kind of that fine line in between zone of aeration and then zone of saturation, where saturation just means full of water. So zone of saturation is all full of water, rocks, and dirt. And the water table is that kind of barrier. Then it's zone of aeration. And aeration is actually spelled A-E-R. Don't know why. I didn't create it, didn't name it. You'd think it would be A-I-R-A-T-I-O-N, but it's A-E-R. Whoever named it, I guess blame them. But anyways, so that is something that definitely shows up on the SOLs. You'll definitely see on my test. So when we have a drought, this water table, that boundary between the zone of aeration and saturation during a drought, goes down. There's more air and dirt. When it floods, like during a hurricane, the water table goes up. There's more saturation. Last two things, you might see something about delta. Delta is like a big pile of sand and sediment and dirt and mud that piles up at the base of a river where it empties into a larger body of water, like a bay or a gulf. Like New Orleans is a big delta. It's a big pile of sand, dirt, mud, sediment, swamp area that is at the end of the Mississippi River. And if you think about it, would you really want to build a whole city on a big pile of mud? What's happening to New Orleans right now? It's going down. About 2/3 of the city is below sea level. Why? Because they built the city on a big pile of mud. Is Richmond sinking? No. Why not? Because they built it on a big pile of solid rock, granite. But that's a little extra information. One other thing is barrier islands. Barrier islands, these are big piles of sand that form along a coastline and are constantly moving backwards. There's nothing to be done to stop them. Just a big pile of sand. Kind of like with New Orleans, it's kind of just a bad place to be if you've got long-term property. Anyways, that's it for the information that you need to know for this test and possibly might see on the SOLs. Bye-bye.